Good evening. My name's Brad Rayl, former city engineer here in Anderson, also previously a county engineer and a county surveyor, one-time engineer for a contractor, building roads and utilities, and since 1986 I've been a private practicing engineer here in Anderson and surrounding communities. When I first learned of the proposed reservoir project, my reaction was really somewhat in disbelief. I couldn't believe this actually was a serious concept. Siting a dam in an urbanized area in the residential neighborhoods of Irondale and Park Place and on White River to boot. This is a sand and gravel river basin. So I was reminded of, back in the early 1800s, you may recall the old Central Indiana Waterway Canal was being built through Indiana, and a portion of it, of course, through Madison County. One of the things, of course, with the demise of the canal system were the railroads, but it was also a situation in Madison County where, when they decided to run tests on the canal, they attempted two different occasions and actually run water through the canal and had their flatboats on it. And both times the canal burst through the embankments of the towpath due to the natural sand and gravel materials that they'd used on the site. So we pretty much have a situation here, and this little graphic, the yellow is the potential, and darker shaded like an orange, sand and gravel potential along the proposed reservoir site. Madison County is rich, one of the richest counties in the state of Indiana as far as aggregate resources are concerned. So another thing, to be siting this in the middle of a sand and gravel basin, to me as an engineer didn't make sense. You would have constant leaking problems in sand seams. They would be hard to find throughout the entire length of the reservoir. One of the things that also came to my mind, back in the 70s, our family had property down on Lake Cumberland in Kentucky. It's a beautiful lake. It's 101 miles long from dam to the falls. And this was a lake, it's a reservoir that's about the 9th largest in the United States. It was started in the 1930s, suspended during World War II, completed in 1950, and then soon after the completion, it was discovered there were sizable leaks. The dam was losing water. So the original cost of this project back in the 1950 was $81 million. When the leak was discovered in '67, their remedial action, they let a contract for $96 million to try to remedy this. At that period of time, we had a property there. We could not keep boats. We could not get permits for boat docks there because the lake fluctuated maybe 8 to 10 feet in a week's time. Now, this lake is 101 miles long. Since that time, and we do not have property there any longer, in 2004, an even more severe leaks were discovered. And the latest remedial actions have exceeded $594 million on this lake, trying to put in extensive cutoff walls on the earthen embankments there to try to stop the leaking. Now, the Corps of Engineers had done their due diligence as far as making some comments at the later stages. Early on, the TV Valley Authority and the Corps, when they built this thing, I don't know that they researched a lot at that time, but If Wolf Creek Dam has a critical failure or a breach, the Corps has determined that Nashville, Tennessee's Grand Ole Opry will have 20 feet of water, and Nashville, Tennessee, Grand Ole Opry is 275 miles downstream from this dam. Now, there again, we're proposing a dam in downtown Anderson. Now, it's only 50 feet high, but we're proposing a dam in an urbanized area. This definitely is a fatal flaw. Another fatal flaw to this reservoir plan, in my opinion, is a tremendous amount of utility and infrastructure relocations that will be necessary. What is obvious to us is the roads and the bridges and so forth, but there is innumerable sewers, water lines, gas lines, power lines, all buried aerial that have to be relocated in order for this to work. The river, along the river, runs what is called interceptor sewers. Back in the early days, before treatment plant was around, we had all of our sewers drained to the streams and the river. And then, of course, along came the need to clean this up, and so sewer interceptor lines were run down along the river to intercept all these lines coming out of the neighborhood. And these lines are there now. They have been there for years and years. A lot of money has been spent relining them to keep infiltration, exfiltration out of the sewers at great expense, to the taxpayer, the ratepayer, and not only for the city of Anderson, but for any of the other communities which have used this, and including Edgewood, Chesterfield, Daleville. So to move these, or try to move these, is almost an impossible task. The other thing, it's not just along the river there for Anderson. The entire system of Chesterfield comes down that river bottom, and the slide right here has a picture of the Chesterfield lift station. Now, the comments have been made about there be nothing needed to be done with the Chesterfield treatment plant. Maybe that's so, but you've got a treatment plant sitting up on the hill, but all your sewage is down below. It's down on the river. It runs all the way to that lift station in Timberline Valley RV Park. And the sewage comes all the way down that river basin from Sam Pierce Chevrolet. Now, there are several of these lift stations down in the river basin. One right across the river, pretty close to this particular lift station, is Lindbergh Road lift station, which receives sewage from Emerald Glen, from Meadow Woods, from Highland Junior High, and Kilbuck School. One other thing that I will speak of here just briefly is about the authority for funding to do this. The commission is being proposed to be formed right now. It would be an official government body with major powers, and the duties of this commission, or the things allowed by this commission, are set forth in Indiana Code 36-7-23. It's about a 14-page document that lists what they can do. And some of the powers of the commission would be eminent domain, for one. They would have the authority to borrow money, otherwise incur indebtedness. They can issue revenue bonds for the financing of any infrastructure, and would have the power to be sued. And the commission would also be allowed to hire staff, including but not limited to attorneys, engineers, accountants, and so forth. This, my friends, is a lot of power. Another flaw. The reservoir right now, as proposed, would occupy the floodplain as it exists. Well, we're still going to get the rains. If you have a reservoir level here, you will have to have a new floodplain, and there will be new floodplain issues. And so there will be properties that currently are not in floodplain, both upstream and downstream from the dam, which are not currently required to have flood insurance, certainly are going to have flood insurance. There'll have to be another flood study made, flood insurance study made, and new base flood elevations established. And that's both upstream and downstream. Now, earlier I spoke about the Wolf Creek Dam and the fact that the dam is 275 miles from Nashville. And this dam here sitting about 50 feet high, where the Wolf Creek Dam is about 258 feet high. And if there's flooding in Grand Ole Opry of 20 feet, 275 miles away, what would the flooding be here in Anderson, in the central part of Anderson? The dam elevation as proposed is 875 at the spillway. 14th and Madison has an elevation of 860. That's 15 feet below the top of this dam. 2nd and Henry, elevation of 840. 25 feet, 35 feet. Alexandria Pike and Lindbergh, elevation 844. 31 feet below. Ellick Pike and Cross Street, 849. Now, any breach in this dam, that water is going to flow up. It's going to flow up these river and Killbuck valleys. And we're not sitting 275 feet away either. We're a half mile away or a mile and a quarter, so forth. There again, siting a dam in an urbanized area. The other fatal flaws to me are, unfortunately, the world we live in today forces everyone to realization that we're witnessing more and more catastrophes, both natural and man-made. And we're in the New Madrid seismic zone. Earthquakes. In 1895, there was a major earthquake in the New Madrid, had a magnitude of 6. Now, on the map there, it's showing where the tremors were felt, and also the darker color represents where damage occurred. Now, tremors from that one were felt from Cadillac, Michigan to New Orleans, and from Topeka, Kansas to Charleston, South Carolina. Damage from that earthquake occurred in Indiana, from Indianapolis all the way down to the Ohio River. Seismologists indicate we're overdue for an even larger quake on the New Madrid Fault, such as occurred back in 1811, 1812, when the Reelsville Lake was created, moved, and so forth. With the daily threat of terrorism across the world, including here in the United States, I'm reminded, back when I was in engineering school, a long time ago, of course, that time in history, we were in the midst of the Cold War, and we're afraid of a nuclear attack coming from either Russia or Cuba or both. Now, there were several engineering disciplines being taught at the time, and my fellow students in mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and chemical engineering, among other things, described their curriculums as learning to design and build weapons. We civil engineering students were learning to design and build targets. Roads, bridges, and dams have historically been targets. And whether they are targets for Mother Nature or targets for man, they still are targets. Thank you.